Welcome to Sandstoneherald this morning. This is another day the Lord has made that we should rejoice and be glad. It's a beautiful day as we go through the book of Jeremiah, chapter 46 and 47. A beautiful read, but I also call it a strange read. Why do I call it a strange portion of scripture? Because this is where proof for us when the Bible tells us about how Jeremiah was called. He was called to be a prophet to the nations, not nation, but nations. There's an S to that end. And it just reminds us that the God we serve is not limited to what happens in one nation or one kingdom. So I want you to take a good look and walk with me as we go through. Now, in this prophecy, Egypt is targeted. In fact, two nations are targeted, but Egypt is the beginning. In 46, the Bible actually tells us that the Lord tells Egypt, which was a world power at that time, it was an empire at that time, powerful. It had been ruling the known world at that particular time. Now Nebuchadnezzar was just coming up, and the Babylonians were becoming very powerful. So God is saying, I'm going to destroy Egypt. So the Lord begins to tell Egyptians, I know you have a powerful army, you have a very powerful war machine, you've captured nations and you rise like the floods, and yes, that is beautiful, good for you, but I'm going to destroy you. So God is going to destroy Egypt, but he's going to use the Babylonians. Now that is interesting, that God is using the Babylonians, a people who did not worship God. Remember, the Babylonians did not believe in Yahweh. Babylonians did not worship Jehovah God. Babylonians were not monotheist nation. They had their own. In fact, they even worshipped their king. But God was going to use them to punish the Egyptians. And the Egyptians, a very strong nation, a powerful nation, a world superpower at that time, that had crushed other nations and wiped out other kingdoms, it was their time. Their time was up, and God was going to actually wipe them out. And the reason God was promising this, God is telling them that, listen, I'm going to destroy the following in your kingdom. Number one, I'm going to destroy and punish Egypt. I'm going to punish Egypt because you guys have worshipped idols. So number one, God is going to punish. Number two, I'm going to destroy Pharaoh, who had believed he had everything. He actually was being worshipped as God. Pharaoh had exalted himself to God. And remember what the Bible tells us, that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are powerful through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting out every imagination that exalts itself above the knowledge of God. So Pharaoh had exalted himself to the position of God and was worshipped as as the incarnation of the Son God. And this time he was going to go down. Now God, number three, God was going to destroy her gods. All the gods that were worshipped in Egypt, Ra, you can think about Osiris, Ra, Asherah, all those things were going to be destroyed. And God was saying, I'm going to let you know that they cannot stand against God, Yahweh. God was going to destroy her cities. They had said we had formidable cities, cities that are powerful, cities that are strong, cities that are actually impenetrable. So God is going to bring them down. And Jeremiah is telling them, watch out, because you cannot fight against God. Now, number five, God was going to destroy those who trust in Egypt, because like a lot of the children, the survivors from Jerusalem had run to Egypt to find refuge. And God is saying, you can't trust in Egyptians. You can trust me, but I'm going to destroy Egypt so that even the remnant amongst you who are staying here will be destroyed. I will only save a few, so to remind you that you must always trust me. And then God was going to destroy the Egyptians' war machine, and it was a powerful war machine, so powerful, so swift. So and I was watching a video clip the other day, how the warriors, or how armies, people like Alexander used to operate. They would have their own soldiers, and then the soldier from his own kingdom, and then soldiers from nations they had captured, and then there were mercenaries who are out for grab. I mean, you'd pay them to be your warriors, and that is happening even today. Countries like America are known to use mercenaries. They send them to Afghanistan. They send them to different nations, and they are paid. They are, somebody called them that the hyenas of the battlefield, because they really take advantage of where they are sent. And we read about them all over the world. Now, God says your mercenaries will flee. They will run. Your machine will be completely destroyed. But then God gives them a promise. He said, but later I will restore you. I will restore Egypt again, and you live in peace and in prosperity. That's very interesting, that the people that God has said he's going to punish, he's also giving them a promise. These are not his people. These are people who actually are a people God is chosen to destroy because they're worshiping other gods. But God is saying, I will also restore you and prosper you. But he says, even Israel, there is hope for you. You will go back home and you'll be restored. But then we can learn a few things about that. But before we do that, when Egypt prospers again, in chapter 47, then the Lord tells Egypt, then I will use you to punish someone else. So I'm not just against you. I'm not against you. I'm not against you. I'm now going to use Egypt in chapter 47 to punish the Philistines. Now remember, Philistines were the children of Israel's worst enemies. They were arch enemies. Remember David's fight with Goliath? He was a Philistine. You remember Samson? He was fighting the Philistines. So God is going to use Egypt in chapter 47 to actually discipline, punish the Philistines, which basically brings us to ask several questions. Was Egypt the enemy of God? No. Was the Babylonians the enemy of God? No. Are Philistines then the enemies of God? No. So then we can learn a few things about God from these two chapters. Number one is that God is God of all. He's God of all creation, all God of all nations. God is the King of all kings and kingdoms. He is the God of all the earth. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. All the human beings on earth belongs to God. So we cannot be able to say God is our enemy or we are the enemies of God. No, no. Number two, God will punish any nation whose sin he cannot stand. When your sin reaches, like he told Sodom and Gomorrah, your sin has reached, your wickedness has reached me. I can smell it. It's terrible. I'm going to punish you. So God will punish any nation that he chooses whose sin have reached beyond their limit. Number three is important, that he will restore any nation he chooses. He told Nebuchadnezzar, I will use you to punish Israel, but I will also punish you after 3 generations. After 70 years, my people will come back, but I will punish you in between. And we know that happened. And if you read history, you'll be told how Darius the Mede came over and destroyed Babylon and you know, Darius and Cyrus and Darius, and that is where Alexander the Great came from, you know. And it's an amazing story. You need to read the Bible and read history. They all work in together. But then God will restore any nation. He tells the Egyptians, I will restore you. And he tells Israel, I will restore you. Even the Philistines is going to punish. He will restore. Any nation that turns to God, God will restore. Number four is there's hope for any nation, any people, wherever you are. It doesn't matter whether he has punished you or not. There is hope for you. There's a second chance, a God of a second chance. And number five, which is important, that people are not God's enemy. You are not God's enemy. God is against evil, sin, wickedness, and those he will punish. But if you turn to him, he will restore you. That is why Jeremiah, verse most of us are familiar with, 29:11, most of us know 29:11, but we forget 29:12. It says, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Seek him with all your heart. You will find him. He will restore. He will forgive. He will bring you back. That is a hope for you, for me, and for any person. God will not be angry with you forever, but he will not spare sin. This is John Mark saying, have a lovely day. Remember, there is hope for you, there's hope for me, there's hope for our world. If we turn to God and trust him, God bless you.